what makes a CEO a rock star, today compared with a few years ago. If you go back 20 years ago, most organizations were in what we could think of as the era of efficiency. If you wanted to be a rock star CEO and have your face on the front cover of Business Week, 20 years ago, the easiest way to do it was to make your organization lean and mean, to trim out the fat, to automate, to introduce technology, to have a quality program, to re-engineer, break down the silos, and make your organization a highly efficient organization. So some of the winners from that era were the guys who basically were efficiency experts. That's what made a rock star CEO. But by about 10 years ago, most major corporations at least were pretty lean and mean. So you need to do something different if you're going to be successful as a CEO. And the rock stars 10 years ago were mostly, more than anything, the ones who were in the era of acquisition. They had a very simple formula for growth. If you want to grow your sales, should we say 40% this year, then you acquire a company that has 40% of your sales. And automatically, there you are. Growth itself has increased your sales. And that went along full steam ahead. It's sort of stopped now. It's hit into a brick wall. And the reason why it's stopped is, well, there are several reasons. One is some of the great exponents who actually did have their face on the covers of Business Week. Like, for example, Jeffrey Skilling at Enron, or people like Bernie Ebbers. They're now in jail, which sort of puts people off. Shareholders have become very cynical about acquisition because they were promised a lot and often it didn't deliver. There would be somehow tremendous efficiencies and synergies, and this word synergy has become fairly poisonous. So people don't think. But the other reason is you just can't raise the capital for acquisition right now. So what's the poor CEO going to do today if he or she wants to be a rock star? They have to do something differently. And we've entered what we could think of as the era of organic growth, where you win by taking market share from your competition. And that's not an easy thing to do because, as we'll see, the average company today has more than twice as many competitors as it had 5 years ago. So it's difficult. And your two tools for doing it are sales and marketing. And a lot of the really adventurous companies are thinking of new ways to put sales and marketing together, in particularly the rise of the CRO. If you can integrate sales and marketing better, Phil Kotler and I did an article in Harvard Business Review a couple of years back where we calculated you could improve profitability by 10 to 15% if you could somehow better integrate sales and marketing, and in most organizations they're not well integrated. High-performing organizations are looking hard at these new ways, and a lot of companies have started to adopt a new approach where they say, to hell with the titles, sales and marketing. Let's have a chief revenue officer who just is charged with generating profitable revenue for the corporation. And they have sales and marketing as tools they can use. So you go into FedEx today and you won't find sales functions or marketing functions. It's all the revenue function. So these sorts of changes are happening and they're interesting. And I want to look at those after the break when I think more about integrating sales and marketing. At this stage, let me just say from our Harvard Business Review article, we defined 4 levels of integration of sales and marketing. Down at the bottom, where a lot of organizations are, you haven't defined the differences between sales and marketing. So sales and marketing exist in the company, but basically they each do their own thing. And they only get together when something goes wrong, usually. And then you have the defined relationship, where sales and marketing, well, they work independently, but sales is got an agreement with marketing where we're pretty clear about who does what. And so we don't get our knickers in a twist very much. We don't get into many fights. And we start to get some common language together. Then above that is the aligned level of integration, where we start to get very flexible. We work together. We have joint projects of one sort or another. And we train jointly. And above that, we start having things like shared metrics. And we really integrate. And we maybe even start losing the term sales and marketing. So this, just as a starter, to give me a little indication of where you folks are, I'd like you to, just think about, where are you in your corporations? Let's start with undefined. How many say, well, they just do their own thing? Yeah, maybe pretty well 30–40% of us. Defined? Okay, we worked out some rules of battle, okay. Any aligned? Some aligned? Integrated? Good. What we find is in public companies, that's pretty well how it works out. In other words, there are many more who are either defined or undefined than who are aligned and integrated. So that gives me an indication of where you folks are on this, and we'll go from there. What I'd like to do is talk about how I'm splitting up our time today. Primarily, I want to show you about the changes that are happening in sales, because they are huge. They're altering things so much that I really do feel that we cannot use the same word, sales, for what we do today, even than what we did 5 years ago. It's a big shift. It's important in any organization that marketing not only understands these changes, but becomes part of them and fits into them. And I want to show you how some of the world's best companies are doing this, looking at different ways to work sales and marketing together to be more effective in this task of generating profitable revenue, which is what's going to make you successful in the next generation. Let me imagine all your products and services could be put on a 10-point scale, where if you've got a 10, you are the classic monopoly. Not just that you have a better mousetrap, you're the only people who can catch mice. That would score you a 10. At the other extreme, if you're a 1, you live in an environment where everyone looks rather like you. It's a commodity. As far as the customer is concerned, they really don't see any difference between you and most of your competitors. Now, few of us are pure commodity. Almost none of us are going to be up at the 10. We're somewhere in between. I'm not concerned about where you are. What I'm concerned about is what's your trend. So, compared with 3 years ago, I wonder how many of us are less unique, that is, we're nearer to a 1, or more unique, we've become nearer to a 10. How many would say, compared with 3 years ago, we're nearer to a 10 today than we were? I see very few takers. I see 1, 2, 3. How many would say less unique? Hey, almost all of us. That's a phenomenon which is a global phenomenon. Here's a study in the States where you find, on average, across 20-something industries, it used to be a 6. Today it's down at 4.5. Their guess is 3 years' time it's going to go even more that way. And it seems to be almost a law of business right now that uniqueness doesn't last. That there's a lot of things in the marketplace that are driving you to become less unique all the time.